If I have to listen to one more person say to me when I ask them the question, how are you? And they say, I'm stressed. I'm so busy. I don't even know. I am going to lose my mind. I am so tired of people having stress be their personality. And honestly, stress is a shitty personality trait. So that's what we're talking about today on our podcast. If you and I have not met before, I'm Catie Campbell. I'm a certified executive coach. At this stage of the game, I've worked with more than 30,000 leaders across the world, across industries, developing leaders from the ground up. And I can't tell you the number of people that I work with or that I just encounter in the public speaking events I do, their leadership retreats that I do, or even just the one-on-one coaching clients that I have. When I ask them how they're doing, how are you? How are you, Jim? How are you, Stacy? They say, oh, Catie, I'm so stressed. Or just when I'm out and about and I'm meeting new people and you ask them about what they do for a living and what's going on in their lives, they'll just say, God, I'm so stressed. And they wear it like a badge of honor. And I am here to tell you that is the worst possible way to show up in the world. So today I want to spend a few minutes talking about this because I think that the more that we're aware of how we're presenting ourselves and how we're showing up and how we're sort of relating around this topic of stress, the easier it is to make some shifts. Not to say that stress is ever going to go away in anyone's life. I have stressful things that happen in my life. I'm a single mom. I have my own business. I am traveling all over the world. It's crazy. And so, yeah, and I own my own home, own a couple of homes. Like I've got stuff going on. I always have stuff going on. But whether or not I let stress be part of my identity is actually something that I have worked really hard and been very diligent to make sure it's really not a personality trait. It's not something that people know about me. And in fact, when you get this right, you will be seen as a person who people say, I don't know how you do all the things that you do, and you still seem to be happy and healthy and whole and balanced. It's because I have worked my ass off to make sure that stress is not part of my identity. So when somebody says, Catie, how are you? I will think about that question and then I'll answer honestly. Like sometimes I'll say, I have been running 1,000 miles an hour and I cannot wait until Wednesday because I have a slower day and I'm going to get to slow down and, fill in the blank. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. But that's not my whole identity. I can just tell you, I've been on the road. I've been sleeping in a hotel room for the last several nights, or I'm on a vacation and, I've just got to put my life back together so I can go and do my work. But it's not stress. And so, I want to help people get past that notion or even that feeling that they have to say, I'm so stressed. And then that's how you're known. That's like what you're known for. And honestly, I think the challenge that most of us face is not reducing the stressful things that happen in our lives. I don't know anybody's life that's going to get less stressful. And I say this to a lot of the leadership groups that I talk to, or even the clients that I have, is that the pace of work, the volume of work, and really the complexity of our work, especially if you want to operate at a really high level, you don't want to be running a big company or a big division of a company, that sort of thing. It's not going to get any easier. There is no sense of things actually getting easier. They're only going to be more complex, which means in layman's terms, it could sound like, oh gosh, it's going to be more stressful than to do the work that we do. Possibly. But I think it's like how we relate to stress is what really needs to shift so that we're not taking on stress as part of our identity. And if you were somebody who this is like sounding kind of familiar to, but you're like, yeah, maybe not, Catie. Maybe it's just like a stressful season. I understand that. Busy seasons, like there's a number of clients I work with at the end of the calendar year. It's their big selling season. And so it's like a volume of activity. I'm working with another client right now that just sold their company to a publicly traded company. So they're onboarding, the newness of the controls and operations that are different than if you are a privately held company. So like it's a busy season. And there is additional stress that goes with that because people are learning new things. There's just more things that they have to deal with that they weren't dealing with before, and they're still trying to make money and take care of customers, that sort of thing. But the reality is, like, stress does not need to become a part of somebody's individual personality. Now, why is this important? If you want to make stress your personality, great. But the reality is, most people are not going to be a customer, a colleague, your teammate, your direct reports are not going to want to spend time with you. I can't think of one person in my life that takes on stress as a personality trait that I actually want to spend time with. Because what happens is when stress becomes your personality trait, everything becomes about you. Your needs, the volume of things that you're dealing with, the number of emails you have to tend to, the Slack messages that you have to be on for, the Teams messages that you have to be on for. It's you, your schedule, your timeline, your frameworks, your everything. It's very egotistical and it's extraordinarily off-putting. People that you know who take on stress as an identity trait, and if you are one of these people and you're listening to this and you're like, I think that might be me, I'm here to tell you that people don't want to be around you. They don't want to be led by you. They don't want to spend time with you because it's all about you. And if you are listening to this and you're somebody who is in a leadership position or you aspire to be in a leadership position, and that could be whether you're in an organization, it could be your own household, right? If you are a stressed out parent and that is your identity, your kids don't want to be around you. If you are a stressed out family member, the rest of your family doesn't want to be around you. Why? Because it's all about you. So this episode is for you if you want to start to think about, how do I start to unwind that concept of stress being a part of my identity and really start to separate out the things in your life that are stressful, how you're dealing with it, and making sure that you, just you, are sitting over on the side of it and you're not absorbing all of these different things that are causing the stress to begin with. Really, stress is supposed to be information, okay? It's not supposed to be your identity. So if you are saying, yeah, I feel like I say that to people when they say, how are you? And I go, oh, I'm so stressed right now. It's like everything is so busy. You're making it part of your identity. The stress in your life is supposed to give you information that you need help, you need more support, you've taken on too much, you're in over your head, and you need to figure out how to unload some of the stuff that you're doing. You need other people in your life to support you differently. Whatever the case may be, stress is supposed to be information, not identity. It also could just be an indicator. Okay, so same thing as information, but like said a little bit differently. It's an indicator that you're in a season, but this is not supposed to be forever. I will put a caveat here. I do know a lot of people. Some of them are people that I know in real life. Some of people are like creators on social media that are dealing with being like a caregiver for a parent, for an ailing parent, an ailing parent, or an aging parent, or a child that has significant physical needs, emotional needs, that sort of thing, or a spouse, a partner, that sort of thing. So I want to put an asterisk, a caveat here to say that that's a kind of a special case. This isn't what I'm talking about. The folks who are in that scenario, like, I have so much empathy and love, and I'm always like constantly wishing for additional supports and resources for folks who are in that category. That's a special case, right? Those are people who are actually stressed. And I do think that can be part of their identity because that is just, unfortunately, their reality. What I'm talking about are people like you and me who onboard stressful events and integrate that into our personality. So that's what we're trying to combat today. So one of the things that I have learned in coaching thousands of leaders at this stage of the game is that when people start to say that they are so stressed, that they are overwhelmed, they're so busy that they don't know how to get out of that, is because they've created an emotional attachment to stress. Okay, they've created an emotional attachment to stress. It becomes like a support blanket, if you will, or like a stuffed animal that they carry around with them. So it's not enough for them to say, gosh, yeah, I have all these things to do. But it becomes, and I do, you do. We all have a lot of things to do, right? Like nobody who's probably listening to this has a simple life. And I don't. And that's on purpose. Like I've chosen that life. But a lot of times when people create an emotional attachment to stress, it's not because they're like, hey, I want to do something ambitious. Like I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. Creates a little bit of stress. It's a lot of extra time. It's a lot of creative energy. It's a lot of cerebral energy. It's like a lot of thinking that I have to do. But I've chosen it, right? So I'm not taking that on as stress. I'm just like, wow, this is another thing I've added to my plate. The people who create this emotional attachment to stress, they do it to feel a certain way. They do it to feel important because they feel like, okay, if I have all this stress right here and I can say I've got this full plate of things, like, look how great I am. Look how capable I am. Look how accomplished I am because I have all of this stress, okay? So a lot of times when people create that emotional attachment, it's like the sense of feeling important about who they are and what their identity is. Another reason why people do it is to feel protected, which sounds counterintuitive. Like, what if stress is eating your lunch? How is that protecting you? And the reality is they do it as a wall between them and other people. So they feel protected to, like, I have to do all of these things, which means I don't have to emotionally interact with you. I have an emotional attachment to my stress. That's my friend. That's my partner. It's a thing that makes me feel important. And so I'm going to protect myself from feeling a certain way or feeling like really getting into interpersonal feelings. So if you've ever had, if you're like, Catie, that's not me, but think about stressful relationships that you've seen between two people, like two partners, two spouses or whatever, that you know that one of the two people is stressed and the other person feels disconnected from them. It's because they're using it as protection. They don't have to actually do an emotional connection to that other person. It keeps them protected for whatever reason why they're doing it. Like, and we're not here to pathologize what that looks like. That's a whole another episode, and that's way outside of my my skill set. Right? I have 2 psychology degrees, but not clinical psychology. But there's a reason why they have that whole separation between the other person. It keeps them protected in their own little bubble. It also, the third reason why people create that emotional attachment is it makes them feel productive. Like if I have too many things on my plate, I feel like I'm important. I feel like I've got all of this stuff that I'm responsible for, and I'm going to like stack up the deck, and then I'm gonna start trying to actually work through all of these different things. And when I do, I'm like, oh, look how productive I am. My to-do list was this big, and now it's this big. I mean, I don't want a to-do list with anything on it, if I'm being honest. I mean, who does? But people like will stack all of these things up so they can check all of the boxes. And every time you check a box, I sent this email, I sent an invoice, I paid this bill, I did whatever. I had this hard conversation, I ran this board meeting, made this presentation. Okay, so you check all those boxes, and that stress and checking the boxes off makes them feel important and makes them feel productive. And so what happens next? Well, in order to get that feeling back, what do? You just add more things to the plate. It is no different than somebody who is addicted to gambling or porn or drugs or alcohol. Like once you finish the last beer, what do? You don't go, oh, well, all the alcohol's gone, so I guess I'm done drinking. No, you go out to the store or you go out to the bar, you get another drink and you go, right? Like people who are high on a substance, high on gambling, they don't just go, well, the bet's over, the game's over, I guess I'm done. No, they go and find another game. No, they go and find a new supply and they shoot up. So we create these emotional attachments sometimes to feel important about our lives, to feel protected in our own identity, and we do it because we feel productive. And that becomes a cycle that is very, very difficult to break. So if this is you, and this is, we're filming this right now in the month of May, we're getting into June. So a lot of people here in the Northern Hemisphere are going to be going on vacation, and it's that time of year, right? And what I have to remind a lot of my coaching clients to do, or actually work them through ahead of time, is, so you're going to go away with your spouse and away with your family for a week. Cool. Where are you going? They tell me where they're going. Awesome. So how have you delegated all the stuff that you have to do? Like, what does that look like? And a lot of times I will literally get people blank staring at me. Like, what do you mean? Well, okay, you're going to be on vacation. So, like, how are you, like, unplugging? They're like, well, I'll just put an out of office on, which is great. It's progress. I mean, that's only been around for 20 years, but whatever. I'll put an out of office on, but I'll still check my email every day. Why? Well, I need to, and that's all I need to hear. When they start saying, well, I need to, now I know they already have an emotional attachment to the stress. They have an emotional attachment to the work, but not in a healthy way. If you are emotionally attached to your work, and if you're in a leadership position, and if you're listening to this and you are a budding leader, I want you to start thinking about how you're going to do this when you take on a leadership role. Your responsibility is not to be on all the time. When I'm taking a 3-week vacation basically this summer, and I don't intend to be doing any work at all. I have important clients. I have a lot of things that are happening. I don't intend to be on at all. And I'm sure you're like, oh, well, Catie, I work in this company and we can't do that. You can, but what it means to me is that you're working either in an organization that's not going to support you to like unhook from stress, or you are creating the conditions so that you are emotionally attached to that stress, even when you're supposed to be on vacation. So if you're not able to delegate things, put pause on certain projects until you get back, or you're not spending the time developing your team before you go on vacation to be able to take on things when you're gone, that means you have an unhealthy relationship to stress. It is feeding you in some certain way. So when I hear people go, well, they're going to need me while I'm gone, I don't have the support I need. All that's telling me is you are not creating the conditions to unhook yourself from the work, which means you have an addiction to the stress. And listen, I'm not saying this because out of judgment to anyone. I learned this when my oldest daughter, she was 1.5 years old. I was on vacation with my family at the beach. Her dad was on deployment. And I was really excited just to be away for a week, hanging out with family, having some seafood, playing with my daughter at the beach. It was going to be great. And I remember right before I left, I had a client that said, hey, Catie, can you join this meeting on Monday? We were going to drive to the beach on Sunday. And then Monday, can you join this meeting? And actually, we need you to facilitate it. And instead of saying, no, I'm going on vacation, I thought, well, we have Wi-Fi and I could get my parents to watch my daughter. And I guess that would be okay. It's just like one day and they need me, right? Because they were asking me. And also, by the way, this client knew that I was going on vacation. They knew I wasn't going to be sitting in my home office. I wasn't going to be sitting in my office. I was working in Washington, D.C. at the time. They knew, and they still asked, and I said, yes. So off we go to the beach. My parents take my daughter to the beach that day. It was sunny. It was beautiful, Chamber of Commerce kind of day in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And I facilitated this meeting all day. I was exhausted by the time it was over, but then I was like, okay, now I'm done for the week, right? And I felt really good about myself. Like I could be on vacation, and my daughter was happy, and the client was happy, and all's right with the world, right? No. It rained every single day after that first day. So not just the kind of rain that you go, well, it's like sprinkling and you can go out to the beach and the kids can play on the beach and go in the water and it'll be fine. No, I'm talking torrential downpour, like near tropical storm like weather the entire time. So I basically blew my entire vacation, the one day that I had to spend out in the sunshine with my daughter, making memories, doing all those things, because I had an addiction to the stress. I felt like it was part of my identity to be on, that the team needed me, the clients needed me, and it's complete bullshit. If I had said no, or if I had been sick with the flu or had laryngitis and couldn't facilitate or didn't have Wi-Fi access, guess what would have happened, folks? Somebody else would have facilitated it. Somebody else would have run the meeting. Somebody else would have covered it, and it would have been just fine. And I will bet everything that I own that not one person who was at that meeting, including the person who asked me, hey, Catie, can you join us? Do they remember that meeting? They don't remember the meeting. Do they remember what I said or how I facilitated? They absolutely do not, because it was like 15 years ago. And would that have made or break my career? No, it actually would not have. It would not have. So ever since then, I have been like on this rampant like quest for figuring out how do we divorce ourselves from this idea of I'm so stressed, I'm so busy, I don't even know how I got to this day of the week. I'm over it, and you should be too. And so if you feel like if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I might have an unhealthy emotional attachment to stress, totally fine. I completely get that, and I would say it's normal. And I actually think that the way that work works, meaning the world of work works, it's put us kind of in this position, right? It's made us feel like you have to be always on, you have to be present, you have to be available, you have to be able to check your phone or your messages and that sort of thing. And honestly, it's just not true. It is all made up. And if you don't believe me, I mean, I started my career at the Pentagon, and this is back when we were using BlackBerry, so like 100 years ago. But even then, we were hyper connected to each other, and there was still time for people to take downtime. If the Department of Defense can do that, we can do it too. So I've got 3 things that I want you to think about as we sort of wrap this episode. If you're thinking I might have this unhealthy relationship with stress, how do I start to get myself out of it? I want you to think about first, what is stress doing for me? Okay. So if it's making you feel important, if it's making you feel protected, if it's making you feel productive, this is for you, right? I want you to pay attention to the language that you're using. So number 2 is like, think about the language that you're using. When someone says, how are you feeling? How's work going? How's the new job? How's the family life going? I want you to think about like legitimately how you answer that question. So if you're like, I'm stressed, I'm so slammed, I'm overwhelmed, God, I'm so busy. That's how you know you're in this cycle, okay? So if the first words that come to mind, and maybe there's a couple of others you can think of, but I'm stressed, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed, I'm so tired, I just need a break, I just need the weekend, I just need a vacation, I just need to take time off. This is probably you. You're in this like unhealthy cycle. And then I want you to think about what are some of my habits around stress that keep me in this cycle. So for some people, it could be things like checking your email like right before you go to bed. So like it's 10 and 11 o'clock at night, whenever you start to tuck yourself in and you're just like, well, I'm just going to check my email one more time. You're in an unhealthy relationship with stress. If you are finding ways to like, I'm going to unwind by doing something that's stimulating. And I'm not talking about like going to a concert or hanging out with friends or playing with your dog or your cat or something like that. I'm talking about doom scrolling, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, that sort of thing. If you are spending time disassociating, if you're like, I just need a glass of wine to unwind at the end of the day, not because I'm like, ooh, I want to open this bottle. It's going to go great with the risotto I'm making tonight. Or I'm going to open a bottle of wine with a girlfriend of mine, and we're going to sit here and we're going to catch up and like really just spend time with each other. That's different. I'm talking about like if you're finding ways to disassociate from your feelings, and a lot of times that happens by, what people say, it's Netflix and chill, but really it is like I'm watching the Real Housewives of whatever the place you live in, or I'm watching something brainless. I'm watching ESPN, and then, it doesn't matter what sport's on. I'm just watching it. Or you're doom scrolling social media. This is how you know that this is a stress habit, that you're trying to mitigate your stress by doing something that disassociates yourself from your actual emotions. If you're somebody who says, I have a hard time asking for help, full stop, you're definitely somebody who's attached to the stress, because you would rather suffer, which is staying in stress, than to actually find ways to alleviate it. And the last one is what I call fake rejuvenation. So this is like saying, okay, well, it's Sunday, so I'm just going to sleep in and that's going to solve it. Or I'm just going to go to brunch with my friends and that will be better. Or I'm going to take part of an afternoon off and that will solve it. Like it's not like that's not solving the problem. That is taking care of yourself, like better sleep, interacting, like positive social interaction, going to get a massage or something like that. Like I recommend that all the time to people, but that should be part of how you're taking care of yourself normally, not as an alleviation to stress. So if you're using things like that to combat the stress versus taking the stress out of your life, you definitely have an emotional attachment to stress. So what I want you to do this week is I want you to think about what is one of my stress habits. I just want you to identify the stress habit. And I want you to think about, is this something that is happening to you? So like, I understand like you have a death in the family, the stress is going to happen to you. The natural disaster happening to you. You're being a caregiver to a child, a parent, a family member that was unexpected. That's usually happening to you. Okay, so aside from that, is this happening to you, the stress that you're feeling, or are you choosing to carry it with you? So all I'm asking you to do is to find the stress habits. Like, what are you doing to keep yourself in that stress state? And I want you to do some reflection on, are you choosing to carry this with you, or is it actually happening to you? So we will find in future episodes ways for you to alleviate this stress. If you like this content, I'd say subscribe and follow along. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I want to see you there too. And drop in the comments, what do you think about this episode? What else would you like to hear? And in the future episodes, we're going to talk through, how do I start to alleviate these kinds of stressful things? And really what we're going to be talking about is emotional intelligence on steroids. Like, how do I really just become a more emotionally intelligent human being so that as stressful things are happening in life, which is everyone's life, nobody gets out of the jail free, okay? This happens to everybody. How do I become a more emotionally intelligent human so that I can take these stressful events, make them productive, I can weather the storm, but I'm not coming out on the other side being a stressed person, because stress is a shitty personality trait. We'll see you in the next episode.